tutare ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha.
Hello, and a very warm welcome, everyone. At Tara Mandala, we are committed to being a welcoming, open, and safe community for practitioners and students of every culture, race, religion, gender, sexuality, age, ability, and circumstance. I'm Dr. Jean Carroll, and it is my great honour to be hosting you live from Sussex, England, for this very special edition of Lama Live, with Dorje Lopön, Charlotte Rotterdam, and Lopön Pieter Oosthuizen. Today's session explores how we meet despair, not by resisting it, but by turning toward it with openness and courage. In our practice, we recognize even hope can become a subtle form of suffering when we cling to it. Through the Feeding Your Demons practice, Charlotte and Pieter will guide us in transforming hopelessness into inner strength by connecting with an inner ally rather than forcing positivity or avoiding pain. Dorje Lopön Charlotte Rotterdam has taught in Lama Tsultrim Allione's lineage since 2006 and holds the titles of Magyu Lopön and Dorje Lopön at Tara Mandala. She teaches across the US and internationally and serves as director of the Center for Advancement of Contemplative Education at Naropa University. Her partner in teaching and in life, Lopön Pieter Oosthuizen, is also a long-time student and teacher in this lineage, known for blending clarity, compassion, and deep experience. Together, they co-lead the Boulder Tara Mandala Sangha and have both served in key leadership roles at Tara Mandala and beyond. They're currently co-authoring a forthcoming book, Sky Mind, bringing the wisdom of Machig Labdrön into modern life. Dorje Lopön Charlotte Rotterdam and Lopön Pieter Oosthuizen, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Hello, everyone. Wonderful. I already see some comments of some of our beloved friends and students and so forth. So welcome today to this Lama Live session. We're really happy and excited to be here with you today.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good morning if you're on this side of the Atlantic, or good afternoon, good evening if you're on the other. Welcome, one and all.
It's always lovely, you know, I say we see you type in the comments, but it's always lovely. And I know I always comment on this, but it's because I'm so overwhelmed with this idea of a network all around the planet, that, you know, through this connection, we enter the same space or mind space for this hour. And there's something beautiful just in that. So thank you for showing up, for being here. And if you just arrived, stay with us. we're going to talk about feeding your demons, and we'll do the process, and it'd be wonderful to just spend this time together for the benefit of all beings. And speaking of benefit, let's just take a moment to raise our motivation for this meeting. And so we just really take this opportunity to just relax into the moment. Very simple presence. Let go of preoccupations or distractions. Just coming to rest here together, and then there's a gentle virtual bow to each other, all of the different nodes across the planet where we are sitting in our own space and yet connecting in this web of togetherness and raising this combined motivation to do this work, this session, our own Feeding Your Demons process, not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all beings everywhere. So, Feeding Your Demons, we'll say obviously a little bit more about Lama Tsultrim's amazing work, Feeding Your Demons. But I want to say here in the beginning that we have these online courses, and we have a very beautiful Feeding Your Demons online course that's starting September 6th. So I just want to put it out as an invitation before we dive in to keep that in mind as you get introduced perhaps to this work in today's session, to come and join us for a very heartful, beautiful, deep teaching and practice on this work, where we actually do go through a transformational journey that is really profound, turning towards rather than away from, in terms of our own shadow. So come join us September 6th, and you'll see, I think the link has just been posted in the comments, and we'll say a little bit more about it again at the end of this session.
So in terms of today's session, in the description, there was some very potent, poignant wording around finding resilience in times of despair, finding resilience in times of despair. So when things are particularly difficult, when we feel perhaps a sense of hopelessness or anxiety, fear, what's going on in our world politically, socially, with our environment, where do we find resilience? Where do we find inner strength? How do we meet the moment? How do we meet the moment? And there's this contrast that was written up here, these words that were used, sort of hopelessness, neither hopelessness, falling into hopelessness, nor forced positivity. And I think we can probably all relate to these sort of two extremes, that sense of hopelessness where you just want to give up. You know, you just want to turn off the movie altogether, and you want a big timeout. Say, it all seems to be going in very bad directions, and I'm just going to hide away into hopelessness or exit in some way. On the other extreme, this idea of forced positivity, as I was thinking about this, the image of cheerleader came up, here in the US, you have these big games, and then on the sidelines, there are these amazing women who are doing all kinds of acrobatics, and they're jumping up and down, and they've got pom-poms, and they're, singing and so forth. And it's actually quite amazing, quite skilled artists in their own right. But there's this quality of cheerleading sometimes of like making it good despite everything. Like, let's just be happy. Let's just pull ourselves together and get over this. And that's sort of that sense that there's a sinking feeling underneath, but we're going to do as if everything's okay. Right? And neither one of these extremes, hopelessness nor forced positivity, really are honestly meeting what is. They're both in some way escapes or exits. And so here our approach in Buddhist teachings and practice, and in particular with Feeding Your Demons, is really to stay in the place right in the center, which is not easy, but to stay wakeful and present in everything that's arising, that feeling perhaps of hopelessness, that feeling of anxiety, that feeling of fear, but not to exit, to stay fully present.
We're so deeply conditioned as humans, right, to turn away from that which is uncomfortable, to turn away from anything that has the whiff or the beginning of the feeling, the signal of suffering or discomfort, and to turn towards what we want, what is good, and it's wonderful. It's a built-in tendency or propensity, and of course it's wonderful. But we can also get trapped in that cycle of avoidance, where we always avoiding that which is hard and always turning away. And this work, feeding your demons, this process that Lama Tsultrim developed based on the teachings of this incredible 11th century yogini of Tibet, Machit Lapdran, primarily based on her teachings of the severance tradition, cutting through ego clinging. And I'll say a little bit more about what this ego clinging and the cutting is. But this tradition of cutting through ego clinging, there's an inherent invitation to turn towards that which is difficult for us, our own psychological anxieties and neuroses, to turn towards rather than turn away. The other way of thinking about it, or Lama talks about, is feeding, not fighting. Hence the feeding your demons. Look at them. First, you have to turn towards and acknowledge that they are there. These difficult times we are in, we have to acknowledge that we live in these times. And then there's skillful means to work with that, which is the feeding your demons process. But anyway, Lama Tsultrim developed this feeding your demons process, where we turn towards and we go into a process with that which is difficult for us. And we have a conversation. We externalize what is difficult for us. And it takes place as the so-called demon. It appears as the so-called demon on a cushion in front of us. And then we have this scripted conversation with it. And then there's transformation that takes place. And usually it transforms into what Lama Tsultrim calls the ally, what we call the ally. And that ally is really a product of, it's the voice of wisdom that was already inherent in this energy, this contracted energy, afflicted energy of the demon. That which we are avoiding, once we turn to it and we go into process with it, it actually can transform and actually be a source of wisdom. And really, it taps into a larger underlying source. In Buddhism, this is really the ultimate refuge, the ultimate consolation in all of this. Is, when the world goes haywire, or it feels like the world is going haywire, and there's so much suffering and violence and agitation and political polarity and so forth, we feel like we get overwhelmed. Where we, even if our practice is to avoid and to distract ourselves, it feels like we can't get away from it anymore. And then we go into the heartbreak of it. If we really tap into the interconnectedness of all things, then we go into the heartbreak of it, which is part of it. Our heart breaks open, and then we work with that compassion. Or sometimes what happens is we rationalize it away. We have explanations, conceptual explanations for why something should happen this way and that way, and we hold on to concepts and explanations to avoid the reality of suffering and difficulty that's happening. But either way, in this tradition, there's an underlying, absolute, vast, radiant, effortlessly compassionate ground of being out of which everything arises. Before the duality of good and bad and suffering and delight, before that, there's an underlying vast ground out of which everything arises, ourselves and all other beings and all phenomena. And that's really the absolute refuge. That's really what we are able to access through our own awareness. We are manifestations of that ground, and therefore we can access that by resting back into that. That's the absolute refuge. That's the absolute ally in this work, is to actually integrate all of this and to rest back into our primordial nature, which is also happens to be the nature of all phenomena and all things and all beings. And through our practice, and even through this work of feeding your demons, we can access that absolute ally. Now, of course, we're not always able to access that deep, non-dual ground of being and just rest there, because we are beings that are dualistically engaged in this world. But that's the good news, is that from that, starting from that absolute ground of being, we can work with the wisdom in a relative sense as well. We can have allies in a relative sense as well. And this is what this process helps us with, is to take everyday suffering and contraction and encumbrance and turn it into a source of strength and support. And that's all the wisdom is actually coming through us. It's not someone else saying us, you should do this, or this is the answer, or be like this. It's our own inner, inherent, self-arising wisdom that comes from that vast, deep ground of being that is our primordial nature.
There's a beautiful quote of Rumi's, the Sufi poet Rumi. And I'm guessing many of you know this line from one of his poems, but it reminds me of this ground of being that Peter's talking about, this place that is really our home, all of our home, that is beyond good and bad and hope and fear. And so Rumi has the line, he says, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And the sense here of the field, of that deeper ground from which we are all arising and where we can actually all meet, always. And that's really the point of all of our practice. And those of you who know feeding your demons, or those of you perhaps experiencing it today for the first time, at the end of the whole process, what we call the fifth step is resting. And it's a resting beyond hope and fear, beyond demon and ally. And that really is that field. It's resting in the field beyond right doing and wrongdoing. So we wanted to start with this because it's really, as Peter said, it is the ultimate refuge and it is the ultimate ally. But along the way, there are also relative allies. And so in this process of feeding your demons, remember Peter said we're turning towards the demon rather than avoiding. We're meeting that demon. Let's say it's our anxiety. It's our fear about what's going to happen. Or maybe even that sense like, I just want out. I don't want to have to deal. Whatever our demon is, hopelessness. We're turning towards it. We're meeting it. And we're feeding rather than fighting, as Peter said. And in that process, the energy of the demon is liberated, and the energy itself becomes a form of insight, becomes an ally in the process. That same energy that was kind of stuck in the demon because the demon wasn't truly being met and seen and heard and nurtured and loved, that same energy opens, is released. And in that, there is wisdom. And that wisdom shows up in the process as an ally. It's an ally that can speak directly to us about insight, about a new perspective on the situation we're dealing with. I think we're going to take you through the process so you'll have a direct experience of this. But just, when we think about this maybe a little more conceptually, what is that? What are we getting to? What's underneath? What's this energy I'm talking about that's in the demon? Take for a moment, begin to think about what you want to work with in the process. So if you consider your life right now, the state of the world right now, what concerns you? What's weighing you down? And I'll just use as an example, a kind of perhaps fear or anxiety. We have kids, what's their life going to be like in 10, 20, 30 years? If they have children, are they going to have wilderness? Is there going to be snow for them? Right? So there's a contraction I can feel in myself. Like, are they going to be able to experience the wilderness that I love so much? Or will it all be gone? So I contract around that, right? And that's the fear, that's the anxiety. So if we look underneath it though, what is the energy within that anxiety, within the fear? What's deeper? What's deeper is a kind of, in myself, I could say like a vulnerability, right? A tenderness, like a little bit hurt, right? That part of me that has anxiety or fear is very sensitive. And what is it sensitive about? What is it vulnerable in regards to? What's in there is actually, I deeply care. I care for my children. I care for the wilderness. I care for the deer up on the meadow. I care for that beauty of fresh snow and the blue sky, and that people and beings might experience that. What's deep in there in that care is I love this world. I love this world. I love human beings. I love the wilderness. I love so deeply, and it's so tender. And it's because I care so much that I have anxiety or fear or hopelessness. So we go deeper in, and what that love, that deep care, in this tradition, it's called Bodhicitta, the awakened heart mind. That within us is awakened heart, awakened mind. And from there, when we access that deeper energy, that is gives us a form of insight, is a form of wisdom, the resilience lies there to meet the moment. And so the ally that appears in the process of feeding your demons actually comes from that place and can meet the moment with very helpful perspectives, words sometimes.
The other way that we may sometimes deal with events in the world that we find difficult to witness is, a kind of a hardening of our hearts. We have such a vulnerability, such a protective vulnerability around that deep place that Charlotte is talking about, that we feel like we have to defend it, we have to protect it, we rationalize in a way, or we have different mechanisms of defending or hardening our hearts to the suffering of the world, because in a way we don't know how to deal with it. But that kind of hardening of our hearts is in itself a kind of suffering. It doesn't lead to true deep healing. And furthermore, so it doesn't allow us, it keeps us locked in our own uncomfortable ego posture. It keeps us caught in a small self, and that's not the place where we can benefit others from. Once we let go and open to our own suffering and become honest about it, and sort of try it on, see if we can survive the feeling of our own suffering, and condition ourselves slowly through these practices to not turn away so reflexively, but to turn towards, to see if we can relax into the reality of things. So in other words, we're looking at the world as it is. We're looking at our own reality as it is, rather than being so graspy to the way we want it to be. That's such a strong propensity in us to want to force things the way we want it to be rather than the way it actually is, right? And when we start coming to terms with the way things actually are, there's actually tremendous empowerment in that. And of course, the first, instance, it's not that easy because we have to actually do something different to what we are conditioned to do, which is to turn away and to avoid. Where we have to work with that. We have to accept that there is suffering. We have to accept our own suffering. We have to accept the suffering is happening in the world. And so then that is how we soften this shield of looking away the whole time, not wanting to look, not wanting to acknowledge, or rationalizing away the suffering of the world, or justifying it through philosophies and ideologies. We let go of all of that and we just feel that open to that vulnerability. And from that place, the healing can come. But it's not only healing, it's wisdom. It's the wisdom of seeing things as they are. It's the wisdom of being open to the world. And it's the wisdom of letting go of our small self and relaxing and tapping into a vaster underlying wisdom, that primordial wisdom, that primordial ground of being that I was talking about earlier. So whether we are just in the pain because of our compassion, or whether we are turning away and not contacting our compassion because we are it's too vulnerable, too painful, this is an invitation to really be with that. And it's not just like, self-flagellation, let's just sit with the pain. It's actually going in there and being there and then finding agency within that by letting go and relaxing and expanding and resting in this vaster transpersonal field of wisdom.
So what we'd like to do now is invite you to engage in a feeding your demons process, which I will guide you in. So there are two things you need to do. The first, very on a practical level, is set yourself up so that you have two seats facing each other. So you'll have one seat, and then a couple of times during the process, I'll ask you to move to the other seat, and you'll face your original self, your original seat. So you could do that if you're sitting on a couch. You could just use two sides of the couch. If you have a chair you want to pull up, you could do that. If you're sitting on the floor, just have perhaps two cushions, two seats.
I just want to say, if you just joined us, or you just happened onto this, Charlotte is saying we're going to do the feeding your demons process, or even if you've been watching, we really want to invite you to stick with us. And this process is something that I would recommend you participate in rather than just sort of being a fly on the wall, because that's the power of this process, is you can actually have your own little transformational journey right now in the next, few minutes. So instead of just sort of watching us go through this, really invite you to join us, to go along with this. Just play along and see if there's benefit for you as Charlotte leads us.
And so then also I invite you to think about what you would like to work with. So what is the demon? And we've been talking a little bit about perhaps a sense of hopelessness or despair or anxiety or fear around where the situation you find yourself in the world. It can also be something very personal that's plaguing you right now, that's draining your energy. What's holding you back? Where is there constriction? Where is there encumberment? Could be a feeling, could be a story, right? A narrative like, oh my goodness, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, right? That narrative, that feeling. We never work with another person as the demon, as much as we'd like to say, oh, if only they would do X, Y, and Z, then everything would be great, right? So we don't work with another person as the demon, but rather our feeling, about that situation, a feeling about that person, a feeling about the relationship, however. So let's start. Please take your seat. Can it be learned helplessness? Yes, in some way, I think the distinction between what's internal and what we learned here doesn't matter. If you feel that sense of helplessness, if you can contact that, then work with that. Yeah, from the chat, someone asked that. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to step out while you lead and do the process myself. I'll be right back.
And we'll have all of Pieter's demons and allies appearing on screen. All right, so as much as possible, I invite you to keep your eyes closed for the duration of this process. And we'll just start with some breaths, relaxation breaths. As you breathe in, become aware of physical tensions, any kind of tension in your body. Breathing in, let the breath hook on to those physical tensions, and then let those tensions ride out with the out breath. And now become aware of any emotional tensions that you're feeling or holding right now in this moment. Perhaps where you hold these in your body. As you breathe in, bring awareness to those emotional tensions. Let the breath hook onto them. And let those emotional tensions ride out with the exhale. Just releasing them for now. And finally, becoming aware of mental tensions, worries, thoughts. Breathing in, bring awareness to mental tensions. Let the breath hook onto them. And let them gently ride out with the exhale. Just letting the worries go for now, for this moment. And now let's generate a heartfelt motivation for this practice, that it may be of personal benefit, and that it may be of benefit to all beings. So now I invite you to bring to mind the particular issue, the demon that you will be working with in this process today. So this constriction, this obstacle, this weight, as you experience it in your life. Really bring it to mind, into your awareness, perhaps recalling a recent situation or incident in which it came up most strongly. Let yourself feel it. And imagine that this feeling is somewhere in your body, is located in your body. This feeling is held in your physical body. Where would that be? Which part of your body is it in? And now imagine that this feeling has a shape. If it had a shape, what would that look like? What kind of shape would it be? And what kind of color or colors does it have? What's its texture or consistency? And what is its temperature? And now intensify this feeling in your body with all of its characteristics. Bring your full attention to it, intensifying it. And now allow this shape with all of its color, consistency, and temperature to move out of your body. Let it move out of your body and become a being in front of you. Personify it as a being with a face, with eyes, limbs. If an inanimate object arises, invite it to become an animate being. And so let's take a closer look at this being. Notice its size. What color or colors does it have? And what's the surface of its body like? What is its density? If there were smells associated with this being, what kind of smells would there be? And if there were sounds associated with this being, what kind of sounds would it make? Does this being have a gender? Now take a moment and look into the eyes of this being. What is the look in its eyes? And what is its emotional state? How would you describe its overall character? Its character or personality? And now notice something about this being you have not yet noticed. Now you're going to ask this being a few questions. After I say the question, just repeat it out loud or silently yourself without waiting for a response. What do you want? What do you really need? How will you feel when you get what you really need? And now, keeping your eyes closed as much as possible, move to the other seat. And you'll be facing your original seat. And take a moment here to enter the body of this being. Become the demon. Really inhabit this body with all its characteristics. What does it feel like to be in the demon's body? And in your mind's eye, look across at your original self opposite you. What does your original self look like from this perspective? So now you're going to answer the questions that have been asked. You're speaking as the demon, speaking from within this body of the demon. What I want is. What I really need is. This is the need beneath the want. What I really need is. When I get what I really need, I will feel. When I get what I really need, I will feel. Take note of the answer to this final question. How you, the demon, will feel when you get what you really need. Take note of this feeling. And now, keeping your eyes closed as much as possible, move back to your original seat. Take a moment here to come out back into your own body. And see the being, the demon in front of you. And now recall again the answer to that last question. How the demon would feel when it got what it really needed. And connect again with that feeling. Evoke that feeling right now in your own body again. And let this feeling spread through your entire body. Now allow your body to dissolve into a nectar. The quality of the nectar is this feeling. Dissolve your body into a nectar that has the quality of this feeling. Notice the color of this nectar. And now let this nectar go over to the being across from you. And let the demon take it in. Let it take in this nectar however it can. You have an infinite supply of this nectar. And you can feed this being to complete satisfaction. So take your time here, letting the nectar go to the being and the being take it in. Just feed. Keep feeding the nectar. Remember, you have an infinite supply. As the being takes in the nectar, notice if it begins to change in any way. Feed the being until it is completely satisfied. Feed the being until it is completely satisfied. If the demon is still taking in the nectar, imagine what it would look like if it were completely satisfied. If the demon is still taking in the nectar, imagine what it would look like if it were completely satisfied. And so now that the demon is completely satisfied, notice if a being remains. If you still see a being in front of you. And if there is, ask that being if it is your ally. If there's a being present, ask it if it is your ally. If it says yes, then we'll work with that. If it says no, or you're unsure of the answer, or if the demon completely dissolved during the feeding, then invite an ally to appear. Invite an ally to appear. So see the ally in front of you. And notice its size. Notice any color or colors associated with the ally. What is the surface of its body like? What is its density? If there were smells associated with the ally, what kind of smells would there be? And if there were any sounds, what kind of sounds might the ally make? Does the ally have a gender? Now look into the eyes of the ally. What is the look in its eyes? What is its emotional state? And what is its overall character or personality like? Notice something about the ally you haven't yet seen. Now you're going to ask the ally a few questions. And again, just repeat them either out loud or silently after me without waiting for a response. How will you help me? How will you protect me? What pledge do you make to me? How can I access you? Now, keeping your eyes closed as much as possible, move to the other seat. Take a moment to come into the ally's body. Become the ally. If it helps, you can assume a gesture or posture of the ally. Really feel what it feels like to be in this body, to be the ally. And in your mind's eye, look across and see your original self opposite you. What does that original self look like from this perspective? So now, speaking as the ally, you can respond to the questions that have been asked. Speaking as the ally, I can help you by. I will protect you by. My pledge to you or my promise to you is. You can access me by. And now see if the ally has anything else to say, perhaps particularly about the issue that you began this process with. Does the ally have anything else to say? And now, when the ally is complete, return to your original seat. Take a moment to come into your own body. See the ally across from you. And look into the eyes of the ally. And feel the energy of the ally pouring into your body. As you feel the energy of the ally coming into your body, it spreads all the way down to the soles of your feet, to your fingertips, throughout your body. And notice how this feels. Now imagine that the ally dissolves into light. Notice the color of that light. And feel this light dissolving into you and integrating its luminosity with every cell of your body, as though your cells were bathed in light. And take note of this feeling of the integrated energy of the ally in your body. And now let your own body dissolve. And rest here in the state that is present after the dissolution. Just rest. Now gradually come back into your body, recalling the feeling of the energy of the ally in your body. And maintain that feeling of the energy of the ally in your body, even as you bring your awareness into the present moment, into the space you're in, and as you open your eyes. Thank you, dear friends.
Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully this was helpful. And yes, it's just beautiful to do this together. Let's see at the time. So we write at time here. It's just dedicate the merit of our time together. So any benefit that we've had, any insights in this process, we dedicate that benefit to all beings, especially in this time of difficulty in the world, this time of conflict and polarity. We dedicate this merit to the benefit of all beings everywhere. Emma, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, a wonderful day.
So let's also sing Lama Tsultrim's Long Life prayer. And there we go. We have it on the screen.
And before we do that, let me just, I said I will remind you again at the end here about our Feeding Your Demons online course that starts September 6th, there's a early bird discount that will go until August 6th. That gives a significant discount if you sign up, and I think the link is in the chat higher up at least. Look at that and join us there. It's also the beginning. So level 1 is also the beginning of our full certification program, which means you are trained and certified, if you do that full certification program, to use this work, feeding your demons, not only for your own benefit, but to use it with others. If you're a therapist, or if you work with people, if you have an interest to work with people, you don't have to be a licensed psychotherapist. So do that course with us, and we hope to see some of you there.
It's been so inspiring over the years of training people to become facilitators of this work, and working in all areas, with children, with couples, in political arenas and hospitals, with those who are dying. And it's wherever you work, wherever your field of influence is, this can be such a profound method, healing method, and without needing anyone to ascribe to Buddhism or feel a connection to the Dharma or have a meditation practice. Those are all wonderful, but the process really is, hopefully you experienced yourself, is an integrated whole in its own right, and so can be so beneficial.
And
so
in fact, we offer it
join us
in both the Buddhist and secular track, because this work, Feeding Your Demons, is accessible to a secular audience as well, obviously. And so you don't have to do the Buddhist track. You can also do the secular track, and obviously work with people that are, in a more secular approach.
Someone wrote in here, corporate Dharma. Yes, infiltrate the Dharma wherever we can. It's wonderful.
Okay,
let's end with singing Lama Tsultrim's Long Life prayer. And those of you perhaps for whom this is new, this is really a way that we honor our teachers, and we wish them wellness and goodness and a long, healthy life, that they can continue to be with us and benefit beings.
And they can bring benefit into the world.
So if we can have the script. Thank you so much. Om Swasti Machik Lab Kitran Me Yesheku Jesum Kata Chut Yuzen Zima Jetsun Lama Tsultrim Chudrun Shok Kutse Takten Zetrin Gyurshi. Thank you so much, love. Wishing you a beautiful day or evening, as
Many
the case
blessings.
may be.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lopons, Charlotta, and Pieter, for your generous sharing today. It was so rich and very clear, and I just love how this Feeding Your Demons practice just keeps bringing more insights with each practice, and genuinely translates into healing in our lives. So thank you for bringing your fresh perspectives and guidance today. On behalf of all of us watching and those catching up later, thank you. And thank you at home for your participation and support. And if you would like to go deeper, Feeding Your Demons Level 1 starts September 6th with Lopons, Charlotta, and Pieter, alongside Lama Tsultrim. And as mentioned, there's a discount available through August 6th. And both secular and Buddhist tracks are available. Also in August, you can join Chagdud Kadro at Tara Mandala for POA, Transfer of Consciousness, from August 7th to 10th. This profound practice prepares us for the moment of death, teaching us to direct consciousness toward liberation. One of the most precious gifts we can give ourselves and our loved ones. Later in August 22nd to 25th, Dungse Jingme Rangtrak Rinpoche offers rare teachings on Dudjom Lingpa's Nangjang, visionary wisdom about the nature of reality. This is for experienced Vajrayana practitioners who've completed the Ngondro. And we have the Mandala method journey into the Mandala of Sacred Masculine with Lopön Ellen Booth Church, Choge Bridget Bailey, Choge Lisa Erickson, and Lama Tsultrim Allione. That's October 17th to November 15th. And you can see all upcoming events on the Tara Mandala calendar page. Follow Tara Mandala on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to stay up to date with our news, and join our mailing list to get updates straight into your inbox. Past episodes are stored on our YouTube channel, where you can revisit them at any time. Now, following the tradition going all the way back to the time of the Buddha 2,600 years ago, you have the opportunity to make an offering of dana to Lopons Charlotte and Pieter. Dana is a Pali and Sanskrit word meaning generosity. Offering dana creates an auspicious connection and is a beautiful expression of the interdependence between teacher and student. Dana directly recognizes the precious gift of the teacher and the teachings, without which one could not practice the Dharma. To offer dana for Lopons, Charlotte, and Pieter, please follow the link in the chat now. And now, all that remains is for me to wish you farewell. Until the next Lama Live on August 10th with Miranda Shaw. We hope to see you there. Goodbye.
Om tare tu re, Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om tare tu re, Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om tare tu re, Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om tare tu